It's easy to get trapped in the 99%. You wake up, you go to work, you do what you're told. You follow the crowd. But remember this, you can't live an extraordinary life if you keep thinking like the ordinary. Let me say that again. You cannot live an extraordinary life if you keep thinking like the ordinary. Most people, they want more, but they never ask how. They want success, but they never question their thoughts. And thoughts, my friend, are everything. Let's take a journey, not just to success, but to the thinking behind it. Because here's the truth. You become what you think about most of the time. And the 1%. They don't think like the rest of the world. They see the world differently. They process things differently. They ask better questions. And that's where it all begins. Success is not something you pursue. What you pursue eludes you. Success is something you attract by the person you become. Let's begin with a question. How do the top 1% think differently from everyone else? Because they do think differently. It's not just their actions. It's their thoughts, their philosophy, the way they process life. Most people, they think in terms of limits. They say things like, I can't do that. That's not for people like me. I wasn't born into that kind of life. But the sense, they think in terms of possibility. They ask better questions. How can I make this work? What do I need to learn? Who do I need to become? Now that shift, it changes everything. Because here's a truth I've come to know. It's not the blowing of the wind that determines your destination. It's the set of the sail. And the set of the sail is your mindset. What kind of thoughts are steering your life? Are you drifting with the crowd? Or are you charting your course with intention? Most people are waiting for things to get better, waiting for someone to discover them, waiting for the economy to turn around. But the percent, they don't wait. They create, they act, they decide. They understand this. For things to change, you have to change. For things to get better, you have to get better. That's where it starts. With you. Not the government, not the company, not the boss. You. And when you accept that, you move from the 99% to the 1%. Let me tell you about a young man who came to see me. He said, Jim, I'm broke, frustrated, and tired. What do I need to do? I looked at him and said, you don't need more money right now. You need a new mindset. You need a new philosophy. You see, your outer world, it's always a reflection of your inner world. If you want more out there, you must become more in here. That's the secret the elite understand. That's what they build their lives on. And here's something they never do. They never blame. They never point fingers. They don't say, it's because of the economy. It's because of my parents. It's because of where I live. No, they say, if it's going to beg, it's up to me. You see, most people think like victims. But the one, they think like owners. Let me give you a mental upgrade right now. Stop saying, I have TOG. Start saying, I get TOG. That tiny shift, it changes the entire energy behind your actions. You don't have to wake up early. You get to build a life on your terms. You don't have to work on yourself. You get to transform your life. That's the mindset of the elite. Now here's another big one. The elite don't focus on what they're going through. They focus on what they're going toward. They don't obsess over what's going wrong. They stay obsessed with what they want to create. You want to shift into the 1%. Get clear on your vision. Decide who you want to become. Then ask yourself this every single day. Are my thoughts aligned with that vision? Because if not, it's time to adjust. The 1% don't leave their minds to chance. They train their thinking like a muscle. Reading, reflecting, meditating. Whatever it takes to keep the mind sharp and focused. They guard their mind from garbage, from distractions, from negativity. Because they understand. Stand guard at the door of your mind. You can't pour poison in your mind and expect prosperity to come out. You can't entertain small, weak thoughts and expect to build a strong, extraordinary life. So here's the question. What kind of thoughts are you entertaining? Are they thoughts of growth or thoughts of fear? Are they thoughts of purpose or just survival? Are they moving you forward or pulling you down? You've got to decide. Because success, real success, doesn't start in your bank account. It starts in your thinking. You can have more than you've got because you can become more than you are. That's the message. And becoming more, it starts here. In the mind, in the thoughts you choose, in the mindset you build. So begin today, right now. Start thinking like the 1%. Start asking better questions. Start choosing thoughts that build, not break. And watch what happens. Because once you change the way you think, you'll change the way you live. Every minute you spend in planning saves 10 minutes in execution. Brian Tracy said that. And he's right. Because the 1% they plan, they prepare. But above all, they decide. Let's slow down a bit and reflect. What separates the average from the elite? It's not just talent. It's not connections. It's not even luck. It's decisions. The 1% don't wait for the perfect moment. They decide, and then they commit. That's the secret. You see, most people spend years sitting on the fence. They say, I'll do it when the timing is right. I need to think about it. I'm not sure I'm ready. And while they're waiting, the 1% is moving. The 1% understands something vital. Almost any decision is better than no decision at all. Brian Tracy said that too. And again, he's spot on, because indecision is a dream killer. Let me say that again. Indecision is a dream killer. Now here's something I learned early. Don't major in minor things. You don't want to spend your life making decisions about trivial matters while postponing the big ones. You don't want to be the person rearranging the furniture on the Titanic. The ship is sinking. Make a real decision. So here's the truth. The 1% make decisions quickly and they change them slowly. The 99%, they hesitate, they overthink, they get trapped in what I call analysis paralysis. They wait until they feel ready. But the 1%, they act and then they figure it out. That's how you grow. That's how you move forward. Now, does that mean you make reckless choices? No, it means you develop clarity. Clarity of purpose, clarity of values, clarity of priorities. Because when you know what matters most, the decisions become easier. Brian Tracy said, the key to success is to focus our conscious mind on things we desire, not things we fear. And let me tell you, the 1% don't make decisions based on fear. They make decisions based on vision. They don't ask, what if it goes wrong? They ask, what if it goes right? They don't say, I'm afraid to fail. They say, if I don't act now, I might miss the opportunity of a lifetime. Now here's another critical point. The elite, they take full responsibility for their decisions. They don't blame. They don't point fingers. If they win, they own it. If they lose, they still own it. Because ownership, that's where power lies. You are fully responsible for everything you are, everything you have, and everything you become. That's a bold statement. And it's the kind of thinking that separates the elite from the crowd. See, most people want to blame something, the government, the boss. But the 1%, they say, no, it's on me. They say, if I want better results, I must make better decisions. And those decisions, they're often hard. Waking up early is hard. Investing in yourself is hard. Saying no to distractions is hard. Cutting off toxic people is hard. But the 1% make those decisions anyway. Why? Because they aren't choosing what's easy. They're choosing what's worth it. Discipline weighs ounces. Regret weighs tons. The elite choose the ounce. The 99%, they carry the tons. So if you want to move into the 1%, you must practice making powerful decisions. Start small, then build the muscle. Decide to take responsibility for your time. Decide to stop spending time on meaningless things. Decide to invest in your learning. Decide to act even when it's uncomfortable. And most importantly, decide who you want to become. Because once you decide who, the what becomes clear. Brian Tracy once said, decide exactly what you want, then resolve to pay the price to get it. That's the final point. There's always a price. The 1% pay it in advance. They sacrifice, they struggle, they commit, they stay the course. The 99%, they want the reward, but they hesitate at the price. So the challenge is this: will you decide to join the 1%? Will you decide to become the kind of person who doesn't just hope, but chooses, commits, and acts? Because once you do, everything begins to shift. Remember, the direction of your life is shaped by the decisions you make. Not someday, but today. So choose wisely, choose boldly, choose now. You've heard it said, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but that's a powerful truth, because the 1%, they don't rise to success by accident. They rise by design. Not just what they do occasionally, but what they do consistently. You see, success is not one big event. It's not a lucky break. It's not a lottery ticket. Success is a result of small disciplines practiced every day. Now, I've often said, success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day. And failure, just a few errors in judgment repeated every day. That's the difference. That's what separates the top % from the rest. The elite understand one thing. Habits are the invisible architecture of achievement. They're the engine behind success. Let me ask you, what do your mornings look like? Because I'll tell you this, the top 1% do not stumble into their day. They own it. They wake up with intention. They create before they consume. They think, plan, they review their goals. They move their body. They feed their mind. Their morning isn't just coffee and chaos. It's ritual. Because how you start your day is how you live your life. They don't let the world set the tone. They set it themselves. Now, this part's important. Their habits are not just about success. They're about identity. I'm the kind of person who gets up early. I'm the kind of person who finishes what I start. I'm the kind of person who reads, learns, and grows. It's identity-driven. You see, the 1% don't wait for motivation. They rely on habit. They don't say, I'll do it when I feel like it. They say, I do it because it's who I am. That's the secret. That's the mindset. Let's talk about one of their most powerful habits. Reading. You show me a successful person, and I'll show you someone with a library, not just books on the shelf, books in the mind. Because leaders are readers. They know this truth. If you want to earn more, you must learn more. The % feed their mind like they feed their body, consistently, intentionally, with quality. Now here's another one. Goal setting. The elite write down their goals every day, not once a year, every day. Because writing it down plants it deep in the mind. It brings clarity. And clarity creates focus. And when you're focused, you don't get distracted by shiny objects. You stay the course. They know exactly where they're going, and they remind themselves daily. Brian Tracy said, people with clear, written goals accomplish far more in a shorter period of time than people without could ever imagine. He's right. And the 1%, they live that truth. Now let's talk about health. Because the ones in, they protect their energy. They know the body is the vehicle for the dream. So they hydrate. They sleep. They eat to fuel, not to escape. They don't live on junk food and 5 hours of sleep and expect to perform like champions. They treat their body like a temple, not a trash can. Let me say that again, not a trash can. Because when your energy drops, your decisions weaken. And when your decisions weaken, so does your destiny. So they take care of their temple. Because it's the only one they've got. Now here's another elite habit. Reflection. Every day, % take time to reflect. They don't just do, they review. What worked today? What didn't? Where did I grow? Where did I fall short? That's how you improve. That's how you evolve. You don't just go through the day. You grow through the day. And finally, one more thing. The 1% are grateful. Every day, they practice gratitude. Because gratitude is power. It rewires your mind to see possibility. It keeps you humble, and it keeps you hungry. They're not entitled. They're empowered. They don't say, why not me? They say, why not me? So let's review. The 1% don't hope for success. They build it. brick by brick, habit by habit. They wake up with purpose. They read, they reflect, they move, they give thanks, they review their goals, they take care of their body, and they act every single day. Remember, what's easy to do is also easy not to do. That's the catch. The habits that build greatness. They're simple, but they require discipline. You don't need to do extraordinary things. Just do the ordinary things extraordinarily well every single day. So the challenge for you is this: what habits will you build? What rituals will shape your future? Because success is simply doing what the 99% won't until you become what the 1% are. Now let me tell you something important, something the 99% don't always understand. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of the journey to success. Let me say it this way. The top 1%, they don't fear failure. They study it. They grow from it. They use it. You see, failure doesn't break the 1%. It builds them. Because they've learned something most people never. Dog failure as a teacher. A tough one, yes. But one of the masses. They fall and stay down. But the elite, they fall and rise higher. Why? Because they've trained their minds to see failure as feedback. Not final, not fatal. Just feedback. This didn't work, now let me find what does. That's how they think. They don't say, why me? They ask, what can I learn from this? They don't run from mistakes. They reflect on them. They understand something I've always said. Don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. Because failure gives you the chance to become better. Now here's a big one, the percent don't personalize failure. They separate their identity from the outcome. They say, I failed at that task, but I am not a failure. You see the difference. They don't let a temporary defeat become a permanent identity. They treat failure like a lesson, not a label. That's what the 99% miss. They think if they failed, they are the problem. But the percent, they say, the system failed. The approach failed. Let's change it. They remain calm, clear-headed, and focused. Let me tell you something else, like the 1%, they plan for failure. That's right. They expect it. They don't walk into life hoping everything goes perfect. They walk in prepared. Because success is not about avoiding the storm. It's about learning to sail through it. Brian Tracy said, every experience, especially your failures, are there to teach you something and move you to the next level. The 1% take that to heart. They don't just go through the loss, they grow through it. Let me give you a thought, write it down. Setbacks are setups for comebacks. And the elite, they know that. They turn rock bottom into a launch pad. Now, how do they do it? Here's one way. They reframe the failure. They don't say, I lost the deal. They say, I learned how not to pitch next time. They don't say, I got rejected. They say, now I know how to improve the offer. That kind of mindset. That's power. Because your mind, it will believe whatever story you tell it. So tell it a story of growth, not guilt. Here's another thing, the 1% have a long-term perspective. They don't judge their progress by one moment. They judge it by the journey. One failure doesn't define the mission. It's just a page in the book. And the elite, they keep writing. You want to think like the top percent. Then ask yourself this every time you fall. What did I learn? What can I do differently? And how fast can I get back up? Because that's what winners ask. That's how they rise. Not with perfection, but with persistence. And let me remind you, the path of the elite is not straight. It's not smooth. And it's not easy. But every setback, every obstacle, every closed door is a chance to build resilience, to toughen your character, to grow your wisdom, to deepen your hunger. The 1% don't ask for a smooth road. They ask for strong legs to walk it. They don't want it easy. They want it earned. Because what's earned is respected. And what's respected is maintained. So here's the challenge for you. The next time you fall, don't curse it. Study it. Don't run from it. Reflect on it. And then rise better, smarter, stronger. Because the difference between 1% and the rest isn't that they fail less. It's that they respond differently. They don't retreat. They recommit. They don't whine. They work. And they keep moving with faith in the process and fire in the heart. Remember, failure is the price you pay to grow into the person who deserves the reward. And if you're willing to learn, to adjust, to persist, but then the failure you feared might just become the foundation of your future. Brian Tracy said, "You will become the combined average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." That's worth writing down. You see the top percent. They don't leave this to chance. They choose their environment. They design it. They don't just hang out. They align themselves with people who push, stretch, challenge, and elevate them. Because here's the truth. You can have the greatest dreams in the world, but if you're surrounded by people who doubt, complain, and criticize, you're going to shrink, not grow. Let me put it like this. Environment is stronger than willpower. You can have the best intentions, but if your surroundings don't support your ambition, you'll drift back into average. And the 1%, they know that. They place themselves in rooms that demand their growth. Not comfort, not ease, but growth. I used to say, you've got to stand guard at the door of your mind. Well, your associations, your environment, that's the guard post. You let the wrong voices in. They'll plant seeds of doubt. They'll water your fears. And slowly you'll forget your power. But when you spend time with the percent, people who think bigger, move faster, dream deeper, they don't just talk about ideas. They live them. You start to change. You start to upgrade your thinking. You start to question your old habits. And that's the beginning of transformation. Now let me ask you this. Who's got your ear? Because the people around you, they're either lifting you up or pulling you down. There's no neutral. And the percent, they're intentional about who they listen to, who they spend time with, who they allow in their circle. If someone brings drama, negativity, gossip, the 1% don't argue. They distance themselves. Because energy is everything, and proximity is power. If you want to soar, you can't hang around people who are comfortable crawling. Now here's another truth. The 1% not only choose who they associate with, they pay to be in better rooms. That's right. They invest in masterminds, seminars, mentorships. Why? Because they understand the value of environmental elevation. Put it like this, you don't grow by chance. You grow by choice and choosing the right environment. That's a high leverage decision. Here's something else, they're not afraid to outgrow people. That's tough, I know. Sometimes it means stepping away from lifelong friends, even family, because the dream you're chasing, it requires a new level of focus. And not everyone will understand that, but the 1% don't stay small to make others feel comfortable. They rise and let others rise if they're willing. You see, your circle should do 2 things. 1, stretch you. 2, support you and not drain you, not distract you, not diminish you. Stretch and support. That's the test. And if they're not doing that, it's time to level up. Now here's something you can do right now. Take inventory. Who are your top 5 influences? Whose voice do you hear the most? Are they helping you grow or keeping you stuck? And if you find the wrong people are too close, it's not about judgment. It's about alignment. You don't have to make a big speech. Just quietly move toward where you're going. And watch. The right people will meet you there. Let me leave you with this. The 1%, they don't just chase success. They build the environment that supports success. They don't just hope for greatness. They surround themselves with greatness because they understand one powerful truth. The person you become tomorrow is being shaped by who you spend time with today. So be intentional, be bold, and if necessary, be alone for a while. Because solitude with purpose is better than company without vision. And once you step into the right environment, you'll start thinking differently, acting differently, living differently. That's how the 1% do it. And that's how you can too. You've made it this far. You've listened. You've reflected. And maybe, just maybe, something stirred within you. Let me remind you what we've uncovered. We began with the mindset of the 1%. the belief systems that shape their lives. They don't think average. They think intentionally. They think in possibilities, while most people think in limitations. Then we move to decision-making. The elite don't wait for motivation. They decide. They choose. They take ownership. Every decision either moves you closer to success or further away. That's what I said. And it's still true. Then we talked about habits and rituals. The little things, done daily. The 1% know. Success is not one big thing. It's a series of small things repeated over and over with discipline. After that, we explored how the elite handle failure and setbacks. They don't panic. They study the lesson. They adjust the sail. And they keep moving. Because they understand this. You can't let your learning lead to knowledge. You must let your learning lead to action. And today we talked about environment and associations. The people around you, they matter, they shape your vision, your confidence, your energy. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. That's what Brian Tracy said. And it's changed lives. So now the question is this: what will you do with what you've heard? Because knowledge without action is just entertainment. But knowledge with action, that's transformation. You don't have to become the 1% overnight. But you do have to begin. One new decision, one better habit, one courageous step. That's how it starts. And don't wait for perfect. The elite didn't. They began where they were with what they had, and they built their way forward. You can too. Let me leave you with this. The greatest value in life is not what you get. The greatest value in life is what you become. That's the mission. That's become more. To do more. To live the kind of life that makes you proud. SOG, think like the 1%. Decide like the 1%. Act like percent. Grow like the percent. Surround yourself like the 1%. And one day, you won't just think like the 1% pick, you'll be one of them. It's possible. And it starts right now.